Thank you, Can Corla. Minister, I want to ask you for an update on your work in finalising the new scheme that's set to replace the Disabled Drivers and Disabled Passengers scheme. This senior officials working group, we know it has had a number of meetings, and I believe you submitted a note to that group by mid-January 2024. So my question is, when can we expect the green light? What is your update on what's happening, please?
Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Harkin, for raising this issue. Again, you will be aware that the final report of the National Disability Inclusion Strategy Transport Working Group's review of mobility and transport supports, including the Disabled Drivers and Disabled Passengers scheme, endorsed proposals for a modern, fit-for-purpose vehicle adaptation scheme in line with international best practice that would replace the Disabled and Driver Passenger scheme. The working group is chaired by Minister Rabbitte and led by Minister O'Gorman's department. The Deputy should note that my department has had a significant input into the development of this report and its views, which I share, that the existing scheme is no longer fit for purpose, and those points are appropriately reflected. The NDIS report is broad-ranging, as access to transport for people with disabilities is a multifaceted issue that involves work carried out by multiple government departments and agencies. Consequently, under the aegis of the Department of Taoiseach, officials from relevant departments and agencies are meeting to discuss the issues arising from it in order to map a way forward, and this is what you've referred to in your opening remarks. My officials are proactively engaging with this senior officials group's work as an important step in considering ways to replace the existing scheme as one specific personal transport response in the context of broader government consideration of holistic, multifaceted and integrated transport and mobility supports for those with a disability. At this point, 4 meetings of the group have been held in July, November and December of last year, and in March just gone. The Department of Finance submitted a note to this group, which you've referenced, with my approval in mid-January of this year. This note outlines a proposal for a replacement scheme for the Disabled Drivers and Disabled Passengers scheme, which would be a needs-based, grant-led approach for necessary vehicle adaptations that could serve to improve the function and mobility of the individual. The proposal is in line with what the NDIS Transport Working Group report endorsed. In that context, any further changes to the existing DDS would run counter to NDIS proposals to entirely replace the scheme with a modern fit-for-purpose vehicular adaptation scheme. Finally, the deputies should note, while the department has oversight of the existing scheme, I don't have overall responsibility for disability policy, but we will contribute proactively to this work because we have gathered a lot of experience and a lot of expertise in the administration of the existing scheme, which I think can be very usefully used in designing a new, modern, grant-based scheme. And so it will be a matter for government to decide on any new scheme to replace the existing scheme, and the work is continuing at the Senior Officials Working Group at this point in time.
Deputies Harkin, O'Sullivan and Connolly.
Thank you, Minister. And while I don't have recent answers in front of me, it seems that what you said today is quite similar, except that there's been a 4th meeting, but it's quite similar to answers given previously. And I accept the fact that the Department of the Taoiseach is meeting, your department is still meeting, and that you sent a note outlining a proposal for a new scheme. And can you give us any information on that, Minister? Because you say it is a needs-based grant-aided scheme and to replace what's already there, and that's good news. We want to hear that because, of course, what was there was no longer fit for purpose. It was based on a medical model of disability and excluded many people with disabilities. But what I would like to hear from you, Minister, even if you can't give us full details, is that the new scheme would be inclusive and it would include different types of disabilities, not just physical, but mental, intellectual and sensory impairments.
Thank you, Deputies. To the specific questions, while I don't have data on the rate of success in the appeals, Deputy Connolly, I can say that the volume of activity is much improved in that 334 appellants have been assessed since the appeals process recommenced in December. 334. I don't have the split, and I'm sure we can provide it in PQs and so on, but that does represent a lot of progress. I think it was well over 1,000 people were on the waiting list at that time. So to be fair to the members of the appeals board that I appointed, they are doing a lot of hard work and are making serious inroads now into the backlog, and I want to thank them for that. I think we can all recognise what the key issue is here. The key issue is that the gateway to the existing scheme is the primary medical certificate, and the policy as to what is an alternative gateway to a grant-based support is not one that my department is leading on, understandably. We are the Department of Finance. We are administering the existing scheme. It cost just over €70 million in 2022. We'll continue to administer it. I've made a change, as you know, a very specific change in the scheme to accommodate a small number of cases that I felt were very genuine and needed to be addressed. So we have the appeal system back up and running. I can't give details as to what is the emerging proposal. It wouldn't be fair to do so until we have a final agreed proposal as to what is going to replace the existing scheme. But the work is ongoing, and meanwhile we are making progress on dealing with the appeals.
Okay, Deputy Harkin.
Just a question there, Deputy Connolly raised about the appeals board. In their appeals, are they in any way literally taking on board the new philosophy as you talk about the alternative gateway? And can I also ask you, Minister, that note that came from your department, as you say, you're not taking the lead on this, but has that indicated that you will fund, that the funding will be in place for this alternative gateway? In other words, when we look at the criteria that will be in place to ensure that it will be there for people who suffer from very different kinds of disability, because too many people have been waiting a long, long time. A lot of people could never even think of accessing this scheme because of the medical model. So all of those people were excluded anyway. But right now, so many people are waiting. They want to know, at least from today's questions, Minister, have you said, has your note indicated that you will fund the recommendations from the National Disability Inclusion Strategy Transport Working Group? If we knew that from today, that would be positive news.
Minister.
Yeah, thanks, deputies. Well, look, what I would say is I got the appeals board back up and running, and it is now working, and it's working its way through the backlog. So the latest information I have from the Secretary of the Board is that as of the 21st of February, there are 834 appellants on the waiting list, and since the appeals process was reconstituted, as I said earlier, 334 appellants have been assessed. The board has prioritised the waiting list using clinically based criteria. But to answer your question, Deputy Harkin, they are administering the existing scheme. It's a tax-based scheme. That is their obligation, that is their mandate in that respect. And the priority here for government is to come up with a modern, fit-for-purpose, needs-based grant scheme. And that is what we need to do as quickly as possible, because the gateway to the existing scheme in the form of the primary medical cert is too crude. I deal with it as a constituency TD as well as a minister. On the question of funding, once we have an agreed scheme, then government will of course consider that, but it will replace the existing scheme.
Right.
And so
Thank you, Minister.
the funding that is already being drawn down for the existing scheme is immediately available, but any additional funding that is required, we will give favourable consideration to.
Thank you very much.
Because we want this scheme up and running as quickly as possible. So I don't believe that funding will be the constraint, and certainly I'll be supporting it fully once there's an agreed position.
Thank you very much.